Okay, so I'll be going over now the Essential 3 workshop, and this workshop is also divided into two parts. We're going to do the first part, which is the Essential 3 workshop that goes over assignments. So we should be in our practice course, the course that we are utilizing to just follow along with these videos. And to create a course, you see I'm already in my practice course here. We're going to go to our contents area, and I'm just going to stay here with new contents area, which is where we had built our folder and other content from the last video. I just want to show you this is the same content area that we were using from our last video. Just going to go back. Okay, and as you can see here, I've created a new folder specifically for assignments, and you could go ahead and do that as well if you want, or you could just continue creating in the same area where we were before. And here I've already created an assignment because I'm going to show you how submissions would look. So this is just something that I've created a couple of minutes ago, and this is how your assignment, once you've created it, will look like as well. But I'm going to walk you through these steps. So we're going to go on our toolbar right here. We're going to go to assessment, and we're going to click on assignment. Okay, so this is our assignment creation page. One of the first things it's going to ask you to do is give it a name, and it says color because you can select the color of the font for your title. If you want to be a little bit more fun about things, you could definitely select a different color font, but you don't have to. That's just an extra step. Cancel. Okay, so just as good practice, it would be ideal to give your assignment a very specific short name. So if you're just gonna have a folder with all your course assignments, you might wanna, tell them which unit this assignment will pertain to, or perhaps just what section of the course is this in regards to, like the first 3 weeks of the course or so on. So I'm gonna put unit 1. My last assignment was a book report, and this is gonna be an essay. You could give it whatever title you want. Ideally the shorter the title. You don't want the title to be so long, so short titles are the way to go. Underneath we have here our instructions box, and here's where you're going to tell your students what is necessary for this assignment. So I'm going to inform my students what the instructions are. Please write a 5-page essay of your choice of topic that pertains to this course. Please remember to use MLA format, cite all sources, and double space the paper. And you could go on to list whatever instructions or information you want your students to have in regards to this assignment. Below here you can attach a file. So if you already had the instructions very detailed out on a Word document, you can either copy paste it into the instruction box, or you could just attach the file and let them know the instructions are in the attachment that can be found with this assignment, and then we would download and open that attachment. Or if you have some kind of rubric that's already pre-made, that you've been using throughout other courses, and you have like a Word document version or a PDF version, you can attach it as well here. But there's another way you could also incorporate rubrics with assignments, and I'm going to show you that as we go along here. So due dates, that's a good tool to utilize to ensure that your students know when certain assignments are due, and so that you know if your students are submitting anything late or not, and you could deduct points depending on how you want to go along with that. So I'm going to select the due date, and once you click check that off, it's going to pick the day and the time that's originally happening right now. So I'm going to set this essay due for next Friday, and I'm going to put 11:59, the very last possible second, so it's due by midnight. Possible points, like I said previously, 100 is my go-to grading points options here. And then associated rubrics. So here, if here you can attach a rubric so it's easier for you to grade within Blackboard. And if you've never created a rubric, you could definitely click on create a new rubric, and it's going to open you a new window. And you could give this a title, essay rubric. You can write a description, and then here it already has the template out for you, so it gives you the level of achievements. So novice, competent, proficient, and then the criteria, so formatting, organization, and grammar. And these are just pre-selected. You could definitely go ahead, if you don't like the word novice, you can edit and rename it something else. Same goes for these options on the side for criteria. If you have more options for either achievements or criteria, there's the add buttons over here, and when you add it, the new column appears and you'll be able to give it a name that you want. Scroll over, cancel, and the same goes for this section. So if I were to add a row, let's say I name this topic idea as one of my criterias. You see that the total has to equal 100. If I click on this balanced weights, it makes sure that all of these criterias are now within the formatting that it needs to be of 100. So if I were to add more and click on the balanced weight, it's going to distribute a number for each category. And then once you've created all your rows and columns, here for the columns, here's where you're going to write the description of what novice formatting entails. And I'm going to show you, I have one already created, and I'll show you how that looks. So let's cancel here. So I'm going to click from existing, and I'm going to select this one. So this is one that I've created previously, and I have my description here. There's the name of my assignment, and as you can see here, 0, and the reasoning and analysis. I've written here what each of these things entail. So you want to be as specific as possible with the descriptions in each of these categories, so that your students know how they can get an exemplary, sorry, I probably pronounced that wrong, but how they could get 100 on their paper, and why perhaps they got only proficient. So I'm gonna go ahead and just select the one that I have already created. I'm gonna click submit, and it takes you here, and if you want to make any edits, you can definitely do that, but I'm going to keep it as is. And you can see now here it shows the rubric. So now you could choose to show this rubric to your students or not. Right now it's already by default clicks no, your students do not see this rubric, but you could click yes, and they'll let them know that what score they got, or without the scoring of it. So I'm going to do with the score, so they know that if they do get a certain checkbox, how that affects your grading. And you could also select if they get to see the rubric after grading or not. Okay, so this section over here that we have is the submission details. So this section goes over a couple of things. So this first top part, this assignment type. So mostly it's already predetermined that your assignment is going to be individual submissions, meaning each student has to submit their own paper. If for some reason you've divided your Blackboard class into groups for a group assignment, then you could select groups. I do not have any groups created, so it's giving me this warning sign right here, meaning that if I select it as a group assignment and right now I do not have any groups created, no students are going to be able to see this assignment. Students who are in groups that are designed in Blackboard will be able to see this group submission assignment. And then we have this portfolio submissions, and the portfolio submissions is if you, let's say this is a course, mainly taken by seniors, and you want all their course materials to be put into some kind of portfolio for them to be able to show, what they've been working on throughout the semester or year. Then you could have this so that it saves everything in a nice template for them. And so far we do not have a university portfolio template. For the most part, this portfolio submission tab is not very widely used. For the most part, it's usually the individual submissions or the group submissions. But I'm going to keep it for this example to individual submissions. And then down here, you could see the number of attempts that you could give to your students. So right now, by default, it's going to be selected to single attempt, but you can definitely give your students multiple attempts, and you're able to, distinguish how many. So if you want your students to be sending you rough drafts of a certain assignment, let's say they have a final paper due, and instead of creating, an assignment for each of those drafts, you can definitely have them, let's say you could have them do 2 attempts, so that halfway through the course they're going to give you their rough draft that they've done and you'll be able to see it. And then the second attempt will be their final attempt, which is their paper and its total completion. And then once you've selected the number of attempts, the next option is scoring attempts using. So for the most part, if you're following with the example that I am, that they're going to be just making a rough draft that's not going to be necessarily graded, but their final attempt is, then I would just leave it at last graded attempt to be the final grade for this one assignment. But you could select the highest grade, the lowest grade, the first attempt only, or you can average out the grade depending on, what you gave the first attempt and then the second attempt. But I'm going to leave it to single attempt. And then the final section in this part is the plagiarism tool. So if you check off this checkbox, you're ensuring that the Safeassign, which is this feature that we have here that checks for plagiarism, is enabled. So Safeassign is very similar to Turnitin, and it's already incorporated with Blackboard, so there's no need to go into this other website for you to use any kind of plagiarism tool. Safeassign's integrated with Blackboard, so once your students submit their paper, it might take a couple of minutes for that report to generate for your students, but they'll be able to see it if you check off this check mark, which is below this big explanation of what Safeassign is. This allows your students to see their Safeassign Originality Report for their own attempts. If you do not want your students to see that report, you could not select it, but otherwise do select it. And then here, this very last option says exclude submissions from the institutional and global referencing database. What that means is that if you do not want this submission that your students are putting in, if you want to exclude it from the institutional and global referencing database, you would select this. I don't see as to why that would be as an option that you would want to select. So, sometimes I would recommend probably not selecting that, because you do want to cross-reference your student submissions, that be with other institutions, that use Blackboard and Safeassign for their assignments. Close that section. Let's go into the grading options. So here there are two things. Here you could grade anonymously, and what that means is if you do select grade anonymously, you could select either a specific date where your students' names will appear after a certain time period, or if you just want to grade all the submissions anonymously. That means your students are still submitting their papers as they're in their own user accounts, but when you go to grade it, to be less biased against your students, you wouldn't see whose assignment that is, and you would also let your students know not to include their names in the assignments that they're uploading to Blackboard. That way you wouldn't see whose assignment it is, and you're able to grade anonymously. And once you do submit a grade, that grade will go to the correct person you just graded the assignment for. You just wouldn't see it at the time of grading. You would be able to see their grades in the grade center if you select that option. And then delegated grading. I don't have anyone in my practice course enrolled as an instructor or a teaching assistant, but if you're co-teaching a class or if you have a teaching assistant, you can definitely delegate grading options to them, and a second box would appear here, and you'll be able to select the user and let them grade on your behalf for this particular assignment. Okay, and the very last tab, which is display of grades. Here, you're able to select how your students see their grades. So if you wanted to see a score that would be out of 100, is how I selected my points possible. They will be able to see their score from out of 100, or they could see a letter grade depending on what grade they get. If they get a B, that might be an 80, but they only get a B. Percentage or complete or incomplete, you could select what option that is. And then as we go on, it's these are already pre-selected options. This says includes in grade center, grading calculations, which is already selected so that your grades are included in your grade center. And the second option that's selected here, this means that your students see their grades. Once you submit their grades, they'll be able to see their grades in Blackboard. Here, this very last option, it says show average and mean statistics for this column in my grades. I would say keep it not checked off, just because we don't want to give your students another grade, like an averaged out grade, because it would only pertain to this assignment if they have multiple attempts. Because remember, all of these selections that you're making in this window pertain particularly to this assignment that you're creating here, not to all the assignments that they have as a whole in the course. And of course, we have these availability settings, which we've gone over before, which lets you, display an assignment during a certain time frame, or after a date, or before a date. But once we're done with all of our selections here, we're gonna click submit, and then you see right here, this is the assignment that we just created, and here is exactly what your students are seeing. So it would be good practice if you follow along with what we just did right now. If you haven't, I would suggest you pause the video and create an assignment, because the next step that I want to show you is how your students are seeing an assignment on their end. So I'm going to go into that student preview mode. Give me a second. Okay, so that was just an extra step I took. You guys did not need to do that. But you see here, this is how we enter the student preview mode. I'm going to enter that. Okay, and then just go into, this is how your students are seeing things. So you're going to go into the content area. We're going to click on assignments. and we're going to click on the assignment where I want to submit something. So this is the one that I have not submitted anything into. And as you can see here, your students are able to see the description here. And it's letting them know that they are submitting the paper through Safeassign, which is in accordance with the Blackboard privacy policy. And there's a rubric, and they're able to see the rubric. So then they're able to see, okay, so for me to have an exemplary paper, these are the criteria that I need to meet. And they're able to, write their paper and refer back to this rubric for whenever they need to. And then in the student previews section, I would suggest that you encourage your students to attach files, because your students also have this, they could write a submission here directly to Blackboard, where they can write their essay directly on the internet. Now, the only bad thing about this is that if their computer crashes, their computer might die and shut down. If they lose service for any type of reason, connection to the internet, whatever they have written in this text submission could be lost. They'll have to start all over again, and that could be very frustrating for your students if they've written already half their paper here. Because it is on the internet, any kind of little glitch can be very bad for them. So, suggest to them to use, the Microsoft Office or any other kind of writing applications that they might have on their computers, to save it on their hard drive and then just attach it here. And as you can see here, they have to agree to the Plagiarism Tool for it to be submitted for the global reference database. So I'm going to submit it, that attach the file. I've attached my file there, and I'm going to submit. So when we click submit, this is our student preview. This is how your students are seeing everything. So they're going to see their submission text if they wrote anything. It's going to appear there as an option. But also when they click on the attachment that they've made, they'll be able to see their attachment and how that looks. And as you can see here, we have the Safeassign Report, and right now it's in progress, and that may take a couple of minutes depending on how long or how much there is to go through. Right now it might take Safeassign a while longer, just because as you can tell here, this document is in Spanish, so I'm not sure if Safeassign, it has to translate this before they can write an Originality Report for it. So now when I exit preview mode, I'm going to keep the preview user and all data, just so that I can show you how that would look how you would look at your student submissions as an instructor. But you can delete, your preview user and all data. So now we're back into the instructor mode. And what we're going to do, I'm going to close that. We're going to go into the grade center, and you could go directly to needs grading. And as you can see here, I already have a couple of submissions in my needs grading. So I can click on the first one. This is the book report, which is the one I had previously made. And here I have the paper that was submitted. Again, this is in Spanish, so this gave me an error message. It wasn't able to write it. Perhaps if this was an English document, I'll be able to do that. But I'm going to show you the different types of things. Right here in this blue box, you can write exactly what kind of grade they're getting. So I'm going to give this person a 90. Or you can use grade by rubric. This is another option. So when we open this, it lets you know what points or reasoning you can use. It shows you the description. You could put feedback for each section. You can also open this pop-up, and if you want to view it in this window, you can do that as well. So let's say I want to give them, you're gonna click on random boxes just to show you. Okay. And for this assignment, I had the rubric not to be seen to students, so it's giving me this error message right here that students do not see this feedback unless I make the rubric grading score to be visible to my students. And this is just because there's the bookmark, the book report assignment. And as you can see here, the raw score here is an 80, depending based off what I've selected in the rubric. And I click save, and it's gonna put that grade here. And if I want to change this number for whatever reason, you could still edit this and give it whatever grade you want. But it's just letting me know these are the selections that I've made. So another thing that you can also do is, if you want to add comments, I could underline a certain section. Of course, delete. This is not going to look pretty because you are drawing on your computer, and I'm using a trackpad as opposed to a mouse. But you can highlight to make annotations of certain parts. I can also circle a certain section, and I could save. And when you're done, drawing lines or circling things, you can save that, and it gets saved here. But if you want to also add comments, I could add a comment here and be like, oh. And write whatever comment you have in regards to why you circled this, and your students are able to see, your name's going to appear because you're the one who made this comment. And if I want to add another comment, I could do that and go on. And as you can see, these two comments are there, and your students are able to view this and see the grade and see the comments you've made. So once you're done doing all of that, these things get saved, and your students can see the comments there. And I'm going to save this rubric. And if you want to give them feedback on the side, you can write feedback here, and they'll be able to see this feedback as well. But you're going to submit. And that's great. And there's another attempt here, which is just the word my essay. And as you can see here, this also generated a Safeassign report. And because it's in English, it actually generated. So when I view this Originality Report, it's going to take me to this other tab, and it's going to show me if there is any kind of plagiarism. It might highlight those tools for me. So internet, Wikipedia, this is something specifically, it's written like this on Wikipedia, and it's letting me know, and it highlights that section for me. And it's up to you, whether those couple of words, if you want to, take that into account to your grading as well. Okay, so I just clicked on a different documents Originality Report, because the one that I was going to show you previously was not a good example. But for this paper that I've submitted here on the side, you can see it's giving me the different types of plagiarism that might have been happening, and it's going to highlight it for you too, certain sections. And if we click on internet here, it's gonna, these are certain websites that, you know, the phrasing could have been taken from, and it's gonna be highlighted different colors, so you can just look through. And this is a paper that I found, so, you know, by all means it actually could have been plagiarized. But you can see here there's actually the citations for the different like ideas that are being said. And you would just have to do a manual overview of what's being highlighted to determine how you would like to categorize the, you know, the efficientness of this plagiarism tool with what it's highlighting. And there's different sections. As you can see, this one says student paper, and they have different numbers so that you know which one it's referring to. So 10, the teacher CTR, that's this line that it's referring to. And I pulled up this other one, and this one says it's 100% plagiarized, and that could be correct because I've submitted this paper before, and I've run it through the institutional database, so it's just letting me know that this has been previously submitted as well, word for word. So this, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit to explain to you why this message appeared and why there's 2 attempts here. But as I was saying, these 2 buttons for making comments on the paper are very good to be utilized, and once you're done you can submit the grade that you want, and it'll be saved in the grade center. And this is another assignment that I had submitted, and as you can see here, I put a due date, and it's letting me know even from this page that this paper is already late, so I could take that into consideration when grading this attempt. And it's going to tell me this attempt is late, and do I want that to affect the grade or not. So once we've graded everything, if we go to our full grade center and we scroll all the way to the very end, that's where new columns are created. You can see that I have these 2 attempts here, and I'm going to go into this specific person's grade, and I'm going to click on this circle, which is a drop down menu, and I'm going to click on view grade details. So this lets me see all the grading that's been done. And here, because I've given them a second attempt, as you can see here, originally this was completed yesterday, but I wanted to submit another attempt. So when I clicked, I was given the option of ignore attempt, and it saves it here, and it actually saves the paper, so I'm able to see it, and that's why I got that error message. If we go view attempt, if you go here, it gives me this warning, and it says this attempt has been ignored and will not be included in the grade center calculations. Ignore types can be removed from the grade center. And it's just, I had given this a grade before, but it's still letting me see that attempt, and you could definitely do that if you want. But if you want to just give your students a clean slate, when you go to your full grade center and you go into that specific student's grade cell, you can click on clear attempt, and that will erase this attempt for them. So if I clear this attempt, you see that previous one that I ignored is no longer there. And let's say you want to be able to see what's going on. You can see that I've made grade histories, that I've made a couple of changes, and you can see it kind of holds all the changes that I've made. So like at 2:23, at 2:31, 2:36, and this is all yesterday, and this is all this morning that I've been doing, and I'm able to see all of that here, just to keep records of that. And if I did give a grade, it saves it. I had given it a 70, and then I gave it 100, and then lastly I have given it an 80. Oh, sorry about that. So you're able to do that here. So you could either ignore it and it saves it here for you to be able to see, or you could clear it and you're still able to see it, but in the grade history tab over here. And over here this tab, you can manually override the grade if you want there, and you could put the learner's feedback here, and you could save your changes. And there's just information about the column details. But like I said, once you finish grading everything, it's going to disappear from the needs grading section. So you're going to have to access it through the full grade center. And if you want, alternatively, you can also override it manually through this medium as well, and it's gonna let you manually overwrite. And when I go to view grade details, grade history, it's gonna show me that in the grade history that I've made a change there. So this goes over everything that the assignments workshop entails. The next workshop you should be watching is the Essentials 3 Part 2, which will go over how to create tests and how to manage all of that. So I'll see you in the next workshop.